Good morning. We're going to be reading chapter 45 of Black Beauty today. So this is the last chapter of part 3 of our story. And as I mentioned in yesterday's video, at the end of each part, it's really because Black Beauty is moving in some way. So at the end of part 1, he left Squire Gordon's. At the end of part 2, forget the name of the owner, but he left the place where there were 2 bad grooms that were taking care of him who both deceived the owner. And now we're at the end of part 3. Chapter 45 is called Jerry's New Year. So we'll see what that is about in chapter 45. I'm going to present my screen, and if you have your book, you can follow along. Okay, so Jerry's New Year. Now, for some people, Christmas and the New Year are very merry times. But for cabmen and cabmen's horses, like Jerry and Black Beauty, it is no holiday, though it may be a harvest. There are so many parties, balls, and places of amusement open that the work is hard and often late. Sometimes driver and horse have to wait for hours in the rain or frost, shivering with the cold, while the merry people within are dancing away to the music. So they're waiting out on a snowy day, possibly well below freezing temperatures, because this is London, which is much colder than here in Arkansas. Now, all these people are just inside partying away while somebody's outside waiting. I wonder if the beautiful ladies ever think of the weary cabman waiting on his box and his patient beast, meaning the horse, standing till his legs get stiff with cold. I had now most of the evening work, as I was well accustomed to standing, and Jerry was also more afraid of Hotspur taking cold. Remember, Hotspur is the new horse that took Captain's place. We had a great deal of late work in the Christmas week, and Jerry's cough was bad. But however late we were, Polly sat up for him and came out with a lantern to meet him, looking anxious and troubled. So she's worried that her husband is going to get really sick from being out in the cold so much. On the evening of the New Year, we had to take 2 gentlemen to a house in one of the West End squares. We set them down at 9 o'clock and were told to come again at 11. So on the evening of the New Year, this means New Year's Eve, a time when many people stay up until at least midnight to ring in the new year. So they're going somewhere at 9 p.m., and Jerry is dropping off these 2 ladies. 2 gentlemen now. We set them down at 9 o'clock and were told to come again at 11. But, said one, as it is a card party, you may have to wait a few minutes, but don't be late. So he's saying, don't be later than 11 o'clock, but you might have to wait just a little bit. And they call it a card party. I'm not sure actually what that is. It struck 11. We were at the door, for Jerry was always punctual. Punctual means on time. The clock chimed the quarters, meaning 15, 30, 45, 1, 2, 3, and then struck 12. So he's waited for a full hour. It is now 12 o'clock midnight. But the door did not open. The wind had been very changeable. Oh, there's a spelling word. Changeable means able to change, and changing frequently, with squalls of rain during the day, but now it came on sharp driving sleet. So not only is it well below freezing, but it's windy and sleeting on him now, which seemed to come all the way round. It was very cold and there was no shelter. Jerry got off his box and came and pulled one of my cloths a little more over my neck. Then he took a turn or 2 up and down, stamping his feet. Then he began to beat his arms, but that set him off coughing. So he opened the cab door and sat at the bottom with his feet on the pavement and was a little sheltered. So he's trying to find some way to get some cover. He is not in a cab that has a full covering where he can be protected from this sleet. Still, the clock chimed the quarters, so now it's more than a whole hour that he's been waiting, and no one came. At 12:30, that means 12:30 after midnight, he rang the bell and asked the servant if he would be wanted that night. "Oh, yes, you'll be wanted safe enough," said the man. "You must not go. It will soon be over." And again, Jerry sat down, but his voice was so hoarse I could hardly hear him. Starting to lose his voice. When you get certain illnesses that are really affecting your throat, it starts to really take its toll on your speaking ability. So he being hoarse means that he's not able to hardly speak right now. Doesn't mean it'll stay like that always, but right now he's almost unable to speak. At 1:15, so it's 1:15 in the morning, the door finally opened and the two gentlemen came out. Remember, they were supposed to be there at 11. How long has he waited? 2 hours and 15 minutes out in the sleet with no protection. They got into the cab without a word. They didn't say, "I'm sorry, Jerry. I'm so sorry. We should not have asked you to come so early and wait in this sleet. We should have asked you to come inside, maybe." There are so many things they could say, but they didn't say a word. And they told Jerry where to drive. That was nearly 2 miles. Now my legs, Black Beauty, were numb with cold, and I thought I should have stumbled. He's so frozen that, when you get so cold, your muscles aren't working properly. And so he's thinking he might stumble and fall, which we know would be really bad for horses. When the men got out, they never said they were sorry to have kept us waiting so long, but they were angry at the charge. Meaning Jerry is saying they have to pay for those 2 hours that he was waiting, which is completely fair because it's his time. However, as Jerry never charged more than was his due, so he never took less. And they had to pay for the 2 hours and a quarter, 15 minutes of waiting. But it was hard-earned money to Jerry. That was much harder work to wait in the cold than to actually be moving and taking them someplace. Because moving around actually warms you up. At last we got home, and he could hardly speak. His cough was so dreadful. Polly asked no questions, but opened the door and held the lantern for him. "Can't I do something?" she said. "Yes, get Jack something warm and then boil me some gruel." Look at that. He is watching out for Jack, Black Beauty, before even taking care of himself. This was said in a hoarse whisper. He could hardly get his breath, but he gave me a rub down as usual and even went up into the hayloft for an extra bundle of straw for my bed. Jerry is so good to Black Beauty. Even though he is very, very sick, he's taking care of Black Beauty first. Polly brought me a warm mash that made me comfortable, and then they locked the door. It was late the next morning before anyone came, and then it was only Harry. He cleaned us and fed us and swept out the stalls. Then he put the straw back again as if it was a Sunday. He was very still and neither whistled nor sang. At noon, he came again and gave us our food and water. This time, Dolly came with him. She was crying, and I could gather from what they said that Jerry was dangerously ill, and the doctor said it was a bad case. Poor Jerry. So he is not working today. He is far too ill. It seems as if maybe he has a severe cold or flu, maybe pneumonia. So 2 days passed, and there was great trouble indoors. We only saw Harry and sometimes Dolly. I think she came for company, for Polly was always with Jerry, and he had to be kept very quiet. On the third day, while Harry was in the stable, a tap came at the door, and Governor Grant came in. He's one of the other cab drivers, remember. "I wouldn't go to the house, my boy," he said, "but I want to know how your father is." "He is very bad," said Harry. "He can't be much worse. They call it bronchitis, which is, basically it is, it hurts the throat very much. Kind of think of it like strep throat, maybe. The doctor thinks it will turn one way or another tonight. So this may kill him, this bronchitis." "That's bad, very bad," said Grant, shaking his head. I know 2 men who died of that last week. It takes them off in no time, but while there's life, there's hope, so you must keep up your spirits." "Yes," said Harry quickly. "And the doctor said that father had a better chance than most men because he didn't drink." Wonderful. We found out in the last chapter that, unlike Governor Grant, Jerry has given up drinking alcohol, and that actually is going to be better for his throat, so he might be able to recover because he's overall in better health. He said yesterday the fever was so high that if father had been a drinking man, it would have burned him up like a piece of paper. But I believe he thinks he will get over it. Don't you think he will, Mr. Grant? The governor looked puzzled. "If there's any rule that good men should get over these things, I'm sure he will, my boy. He's the best man I know. I'll look in early tomorrow." Early in the next morning, he was there. "Well," said he. "Father is better," said Harry. "Oh, thank goodness. We've had so many characters die recently. Isn't this such good news?" "Father is better," said Harry. "Mother hopes he will get over it." "Thank God," said the governor. "And now you must keep him warm and keep his mind easy, and that brings me to the horses. You see, Jack will be all the better for the rest of a week or two in a warm stable, and you can easily take him a turn up and down the street to stretch his legs out. But this young one," meaning Hotspur, "if he does not get work, he will soon be all up on end, as you may say. And he's going to start getting kind of antsy. He wants to move around, and will be rather too much for you. And when he does go out, there will be an accident." "It is like that now," said Harry. "I've kept him short of corn, but he's so full of spirit, I don't know what to do with him." "Just so," said Grant. "Now look here. Will you tell your mother that if she is agreeable, I will come for him every day till something is arranged, and take him for a good spell of work, and whatever he earns, I'll bring your mother half of it, and that will help with the horses' feed." Wow, Governor Grant is doing a great deed to them. He is helping out by making sure Hotspur gets exercise, but also, what's he going to do with the money? He's going to give half of it to Jerry's family from the money that's earned with Hotspur. Now, your father is in a good club, I know, but that won't keep the horses, and they'll be eating their heads off all this time. I'll come at noon and hear what she says. And without waiting for Harry's thanks, he was gone. At noon, I think he went and saw Polly, for he and Harry came to the stable together, harnessed Hotspur, and took him out. For a week or more, he came for Hotspur, and when Harry thanked him or said anything about his kindness, he laughed it off, saying it was all good luck for him, for his horses were wanting a little rest, which they would not otherwise have had. So Governor Grant's got a really good attitude about it, saying, "It is my pleasure. It's actually nice to be able to take Hotspur instead of my horses." Jerry grew better steadily, but the doctor said that he must never go back to the cab work again if he wished to be an old man. So he needs a job that's easier on his body. Can you think of anything he could do? Recall from a couple chapters back, an opportunity that was presented to him? Now, the children had many consultations together about what father and mother would do, and how they could help to earn money. One afternoon, Hotspur was brought in very wet and dirty. "The streets are nothing but slush," said the governor. "It will give you a good warming, my boy, to get him clean and dry." "All right, governor," said Harry. "I shall not leave him till he is. You know, I have been trained by my father." "I wish all the boys had been trained like you," said the governor. While Harry was sponging off the mud from Hotspur's body and legs, Dolly came in looking very full of something. "Who lives at Fairstowe, Harry? Mother has got a letter from Fairstowe. She seemed so glad and ran upstairs to father with it." "Don't you know? Why, it's the name of Mrs. Fowler's place, Mother's old mistress. Do you remember her from a couple chapters ago? She's the one who Jerry saw at the hospital. The lady that father met last summer, who sent you and me 5 shillings each. Remember her? Oh, Mrs. Fowler. Of course, I know all about her. I wonder what she's writing to Mother about. Remember what she said? Mother wrote to her last week, said Harry. You know, she told Father if ever he gave up the cab work, she would like to know. I wonder what she says. Run in and see Dolly. Run in and see Dolly. Now Harry scrubbed away at Hotspur with a whoosh, whoosh, like an old ostler. We remember the old ostler who was really quick and efficient with his work. In a few minutes, Dolly came dancing into the stables. Oh, Harry, there never was anything so beautiful. Mrs. Fowler says we are all to go and live near her. There's a cottage that's now empty that will just suit us, with a garden and a hen house and apple trees and everything. And her coachman is going away in the spring, and then she will want Father in his place. And there are good families all around where you can get a place in the garden or the stable or as a page boy. And there's a good school for me. And Mother is laughing and crying by turns, and Father does look so happy. So they've got a job. Jerry has a job as a coachman, which means he is going to drive around people in this family with the horses that they have, very similar to what John Manley did from the earlier part of this book. So he's going to have a job like that, which means he does not have to wait out in the cold all the time. He's going to be treated well. He doesn't have to work quite as hard either. So we've talked recently about, like with Ginger and Captain, that they shouldn't have to be cart horses because with older age and being sicker, it's harder to do that kind of work. And it's the same for Jerry. He needs a job that's a little easier on his body and not out in all these harsh weathers. That's uncommon jolly, said Harry. And just the right thing, I should say. It will suit Father and Mother both. But I don't intend to be a page boy with tight clothes and rows of buttons. He doesn't want to be dressed up. I'll be a groom or a gardener. So he wants to take care of horses or gardens. It was quickly settled that as soon as Jerry was well enough, they should remove to the country, and that the cab and horses should be sold as soon as possible. This was heavy news for me, for I was not young now, and could not look for any improvement in my condition. But Petey's thinking, I'm an old horse at this point. Where am I going to go? Since I left Birtwick, which is his early home, the first home with Squire Gordon, I had never been so happy as with my dear Master Jerry. But 3 years of cab work, even under the best conditions, will tell on one's strength, and I felt that I was not the horse that I had been. Grant, and Governor Grant, said at once that he would take Hotspur. That makes sense. And there were men on the stand who would have bought me. But Jerry said I should not go to cab work again with just anybody. And the governor promised to find a place for me where I should be comfortable. The day came for going away. Jerry had not been allowed to go out yet, and I never saw him after that New Year's Eve. Oh. So that New Year's Eve when he first got sick, that's the last time Black Beauty actually saw him. Polly and the children came to bid me goodbye. Poor old Jack, dear old Jack. I wish we could take you with us, she said, and then laying her hand on my mane, she put her face close to my neck and kissed me. Dolly was crying and kissed me too. Harry stroked me a great deal, but said nothing, only he seemed very sad, and so I was led away to my new place. So again, Black Beauty has to find a new family and a new home. And Jerry has talked to Governor Grant, and Governor Grant has promised that it will be a good home, but it's hard to imagine it would ever be as good as his life with Jerry. But we can hope that this next situation will at least not be a tough situation like Ginger was in. He's been promised that it would be a good owner. So we'll see what happens in this next part. After Thanksgiving, we're going to read the rest of this. This is actually the last of our reading from Black Beauty this week. So it'll be after Thanksgiving that we finish the book with the really last home Black Beauty's in his old age, and we'll see how he ends his life. Chapter 46 through 49, I believe. Yes, is what we're going to be reading after Thanksgiving break. That is Black Beauty's really last home. Okay, so I will talk to you all later. I hope that you have been enjoying this. There's some questions to answer about this chapter as well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.